Everyone. I have just a very short clip for you. This is the type of financial analysis I really like, where you're kind of digging into something and you find some patterns or something that isn't well known or talked about. So this will just be a short, more of a focus on financial quantitative analysis for AMD. I have something else planned for an AMD video, but for now this will just be a short clip. So let's just go in here. If we go down here a little bit, I'm just doing basic calculations for the last, 24 months. So trailing 12 months numbers for revenue, net income, free cash flow. But I also, here's where I found some very interesting statistics, was in the stock repurchases. And if you look at the free cash flow and free cash flow margin and free cash flow per share of AMD with and without stock repurchases, it paints a very different picture. And it also paints a picture that is quite good for AMD investors, in my opinion, because free cash flow is exploding. And I think we're going to see the continuation of that, because AMD recently sold off their asset heavy business. I believe it's the ZT Systems manufacturing side of the business. So they're going to become more asset light there, which we'll have to see how that plays out or when that happens. But theoretically, when you think about that, that should help increase gross margin, help increase free cash flow, and that sort of thing. So we'll have to see how that goes over the coming quarters. So let's take a look at this part right here. So you can see the trailing 12 months, AMD has done about 2.7 billion in free cash flow. That's up over 2x from the prior trailing 12 months. And then I also have this nice little column here, which I dug into their financial reports. They also repurchased, in the last 12 months, they repurchased 1.6 billion in common stock. That's a lot. So if you take that out, they actually did 4.3 billion in free cash flow. So that's essentially a 4x from this number. But if you do the same thing for the 12 months prior, it still ends up being over a 2x. But I think this paints a better picture of the company's free cash flow. I've got the shares outstanding here, so we can do free cash flow per share. I know there's a lot of people on X now talking about that, and it is a good metric. And you can see from Q2 2023 to this last quarter, free cash flow per share is exploding. So that's very good. If you do it for the full trailing 12 months versus the prior trailing 12 months, again, going way up. And I expect this to keep going way up. And if you look at the margin, so free cash flow margin looks pretty bad if you had all the common stock repurchases in there. But it looks a bit better when you take that out. In Q1, we did 20% free cash flow margin. Now, that isn't an incredible statistic. You have companies like NVIDIA doing 40%, companies like Palantir doing over 30%. But 20% is way better than we thought. And that's up almost 3x from the prior Q1 of last year in 2024. So I think this is something I'm going to track pretty heavily over the coming years, just because it'll be fun to see how large these numbers get. And this is the investigation, so to speak, when you put on your detective hat and do dig into the financials. This is the kind of stuff that I think is really valuable. It really gives you like a direction. You can see the directionality of the company financially, instead of doing all the projections and all this other stuff is important. You do have to do that. But this is where you're like, oh, well, people aren't really digging in this hard. But if you do it, you can see the company is really, really poised for some good growth based on the direction of these numbers, taking out the stock repurchases, which I don't think they're going to slow those down for the time being, but they may. You never know. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the video. Look for something more on the qualitative end sometime in the next week or so, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.